I'm Natalie. I'm 33 years old, and after a decade of grinding in the real estate development world, I finally did it. I bought my dream home. Not just any house. My house. A 3-bedroom, 2-bath beauty with a wide-open floor plan, a gourmet kitchen with granite countertops, and a living room with these stunning floor-to-ceiling windows that flood the place with natural light. It's 2,300 square feet of independence, pride, and peace. Every detail in this house? I chose it. I spent months poring over paint swatches, comparing hardware, testing furniture fabrics. The walls in the living room are a rich, deep teal bold, yes, but it gives the room life. The cream curtains with gold threading hang elegantly beside my charcoal gray sectional. And that coffee table? It's a reclaimed wood piece from a local artisan down in Asheville. Solid. Unique. Just like this home. Just like me. Now, my parents decent folks, really they still live in the modest 2-bedroom ranch I grew up in. Dad's worked at the post office for over 20 years. Mom picks up bookkeeping gigs here and there. They're not wealthy, but they're stable. Comfortable. We were never the type of family to talk about feelings, but they always meant well, I think. Then there's my younger brother Brandon. He's 29, works in marketing, and has been babied his entire life. He could burn a microwave dinner, and Mom would call it trying his best. So, naturally, when he started dating Alyssa, a woman with a personality as sharp as her stiletto heels, they were thrilled. Alyssa. Where do I start? She's beautiful, I'll give her that. Long, glossy blonde hair, perfect makeup even for grocery runs, and her clothes? Straight out of a fashion blog. But behind the gloss, she's got this smug, know-it-all air that just grates on you. You know the type, every comment's a backhanded compliment, every sentence a judgment wrapped in sugar. I first got a taste of her style at my housewarming party. I'd just moved in, still soaking up that new homeowner pride, and wanted to celebrate with family. I walked Mom through the rooms, and she immediately said, "This place is huge for just you, honey." Dad chimed in, "Feels like a family house, not a single-person house." I smiled, brushed it off. "I work from home," I said. "Need an office, plus, it's nice to have a guest room for friends." But their eyes, there was something in them. Not envy exactly. More like confusion. Like they didn't think I deserved this space. Because I wasn't married. Because I didn't have kids. Because I didn't need it, so why did I have it? And then Alyssa started. "The teal is very bold," she said, squinting like my walls gave her a migraine. "The backsplash in the kitchen is interesting." Every observation was a thinly veiled insult, dressed up as constructive feedback. I kept smiling. I kept being polite. But something shifted in me that day. I realized I'd built a home I loved, and some people, even family, would never let me just enjoy it. And that was only the beginning. I knew she didn't like bold. I said it anyway. I like bold because it was true. That smug little hum she made in response? That was her signature move. Passive-aggressive disapproval, dipped in fake politeness, and served with a side of superiority. All night long, Alyssa strutted through my house like she was a judge on some HGTV competition. "The backsplash is interesting. Oh, your bathroom tile, that's unique." Every comment was a jab wrapped in satin. And me? I just kept smiling like a hostess on autopilot. "Thank you," I said each time, even though my jaw was starting to ache from clenching my teeth. This was my sanctuary, my safe space. And she was treating it like a fixer-upper on life support. Over the next several months, Brandon kept stopping by, and like a bad penny, Alyssa kept showing up too. She never came empty-handed, though. No, she always brought opinions. One time, she dropped this gem, "Natalie, if you ever want decorating advice, I took a few design classes in college." I smiled, sipped my wine, and answered, "Thanks. But I love how it looks." She tilted her head and gave me that look, the one that says, "Bless your heart, you clearly have no taste." Another time she suggested I repaint. "You should try something neutral. Taupe, maybe. Timeless colors age better." I bit my tongue. I wasn't going to blow up at my brother's girlfriend over paint swatches. Brandon seemed genuinely happy with her. Why, I still couldn't figure out, but I didn't want to stir the pot. But the pot boiled over anyway. About 8 months after that housewarming party, Brandon and Alyssa came by for dinner. I had made lemon rosemary chicken and roasted Brussels sprouts, nothing fancy, just comfort food. She barely stepped through the door before she opened her mouth. "I've been thinking about your living room," she said, arms folded like an interior design overlord. "That teal is a bit overwhelming. And with those gold-threaded curtains? It's a lot. Honestly, it's kind of sensory overload." That was it. I put down my wine glass and turned to her with a smile so sweet it could rot teeth. "You know what, Alyssa? When you buy your house, you can explore your God-given design talent however you want. Until then, maybe keep your critiques to yourself." Brandon immediately tensed up. "Natalie, come on." "No, Brandon. I've bitten my tongue long enough. I'm tired of being nice while she nitpicks everything about my home. My home that I worked years to afford. I like the teal. I like the curtains. I don't need approval to love my space." Alyssa shot up from the sofa like she'd been electrocuted. "I was just trying to help." "God, you're so sensitive. And you're just so helpful," I said, this time with all the sarcasm I'd been storing for months. She grabbed her purse, spun on her heels, and declared, "Brandon, we're leaving." He trailed after her, but not before shooting me this wounded look that said, "You're the problem." That hurt. More than I care to admit. Once the door closed behind them, I sat back down on my charcoal gray couch, surrounded by all the colors and textures and details I'd fallen in love with, and for the first time in months, I felt peace. Was I harsh? Maybe. But I was done sacrificing my sanity just to keep the peace with someone who clearly didn't respect me. Brandon didn't call. Neither did she. And honestly, I was fine with that. It wasn't until 2 months later, while I was neck deep in zoning maps and site plans in my home office, that Brandon's name lit up my phone screen. For a moment, I just stared at it, my thumb hovering. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me. And that's when everything really started to spiral. We hadn't spoken since the night Alyssa stormed out with her designer heels clicking down my driveway. So when Brandon called out of the blue, I hesitated before answering. "Hey, Natalie," he said. His voice was upbeat, almost too upbeat. Nervous energy buzzed beneath every syllable. "Hey, everything okay?" I asked. "I've got some news," he said, pausing dramatically like we were on a game show. "Alyssa and I are getting married." I leaned back in my chair, hand resting on a stack of development proposals. Honestly, it wasn't a shock. But hearing it out loud still hit different. Like a door slamming shut on whatever hope I had that he might come to his senses. "Well, congratulations," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "Thanks, we're doing it big Riverside Hotel, Grand Ballroom." Alyssa found it. It's like everything she ever dreamed of. Of course she did. "And, obviously," he continued, "you're invited. You're my sister." Despite everything, I felt that familiar tug in my chest. He was still my little brother. I didn't like his fiancée, but I didn't want to be the kind of person who skipped her sibling's wedding out of spite. "I'll be there," I said. "I wouldn't miss it." "Awesome." His tone shifted slightly, like he was bracing for impact. "There's just one more thing. Here it comes. So, the wedding's kind of expensive," he said. "You know the venue, catering, the dress, floral arrangements. Alyssa wants orchids flown in from Hawaii." I blinked. "Orchids? From Hawaii? And I know you're doing really well," he added. "I thought maybe you could help us out?" I glanced at the stack of bills and the mortgage statement on my desk. I worked hard for every cent. I wasn't swimming in money, just responsible. But he was my brother. "How much?" I asked. "Well, we were hoping for maybe $20,000. I almost dropped the phone. "20? Yeah. But anything would help." I let the silence hang a second before saying, "I can give you 10. Right now. That's all I can commit to." There was a pause, long enough to sting. "Oh, okay," he finally said. "Yeah. Thanks, Natalie, I appreciate it." But I could hear the disappointment in his voice, like I'd handed him a used toaster instead of a check. After we hung up, I stared at the wall for a good minute, trying to calm the fire bubbling inside. $10,000. That was generous. I transferred it that afternoon. Brandon sent a single-line text. Thanks. No call. No emoji. Nothing. A few days later, Mom called. Which was rare. She usually texted unless it was something serious. Natalie, honey. Can you come over tonight? We need to talk, it's important. I sighed. Here it comes, I thought. The guilt trip. I already had my rebuttal loaded. I helped Brandon with rent. I sent them money for bills. 10 grand for a wedding was not stingy. Sure, I said. I'll be there around 7. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Brandon's car parked out front. Terrific. A family summit. The porch light was on, the same soft yellow glow I'd grown up under. I stepped inside, unannounced, like I always did. Everyone was gathered at the dining table: Mom, Dad, Brandon, and Alyssa, in full glam mode. Her arms crossed, her lips tight. Hi, I said, sitting in the lone empty chair. The tension was thick enough to slice with a steak knife. Natalie, Mom said, with a clipped nod. Dad gave me a stiff wave. Brandon smiled, but there was no warmth behind it. Alyssa just stared. So, I said. What's this about? Mom cleared her throat. Well, you know Brandon and Alyssa are getting married next month. I know, I said. Brandon told me. But something in her tone made my stomach knot. This wasn't about money. This was about something bigger. Something worse. Congratulations again, you two, I said, keeping my tone as neutral as possible. Alyssa gave me a tight-lipped thank you, but it felt more like a warning than gratitude. Mom leaned forward. After the wedding, Brandon and Alyssa will need somewhere to live. I blinked. Aren't they already living together? In that downtown apartment? Brandon nodded slowly. Yeah, but it's a rental. It's small, the area's not great. I shrugged. Welcome to your 20s. Everyone starts somewhere. A rental's not a prison sentence. Alyssa straightened her spine like she was preparing to deliver a closing argument. I'm not living in some cramped rental after I get married. I want a real home. In a nice neighborhood, somewhere safe, clean, respectable. I could feel the gears turning behind those words. So, I said cautiously, start looking. The housing market's not terrible right now. If you play it smart. That's the thing. Mom cut in. They can't afford to buy yet, not something nice. And with the wedding expenses, they'll need time to save. That's where family comes in. Something inside me went cold. Dad cleared his throat and finally spoke. Family helps family, Natalie. I narrowed my eyes. What exactly are you suggesting? Mom looked me dead in the eye. We think you should let Brandon and Alyssa live in your house. It hit me like a slap. I'm sorry, I said, certain I'd misheard. You what? Alyssa chimed in, smiling like she was doing me a favor. Your house is way too big for one person, Natalie. You don't need 3 bedrooms, but Brandon and I were building a family, we need a real home. My mouth went dry. So, let me get this straight. You want me to give you my house? They all just stared at me, like this was the most reasonable thing in the world. Dad leaned in. You make good money. You could buy something smaller, more appropriate for a single woman. A condo, Alyssa offered brightly. Less space to clean, easier to manage. I stood up. My hands were shaking, but I didn't care if they noticed. Absolutely not. Are you people hearing yourselves? This is the home I saved for, the home I'm still paying off, the home I love. Mom raised a hand like she was calling time out. Now, let's not overreact, we're just trying to have a conversation. No, I said. You're trying to manipulate me into giving away the one thing in my life I built completely on my own. I turned for the door. You're being selfish, Alyssa spat. You're a terrible sister. I stopped and looked at Brandon, me brother, the one person who could have shut all of this down. Is this really what you want too? He couldn't meet my eyes. It would really help us out. And that was it. I walked out. Drove home. parked in my driveway, and sat there in silence, just staring at the teal walls glowing through the living room windows. This was my safe space. And they had the audacity to ask me to hand it over, like I owed it to them. The next morning, the text messages started. First, guilt. Please think about it. Then shame, I'm so disappointed in you. And finally, pressure. Family sacrifices for one another. Brandon's messages just said, please consider it. I didn't answer. I didn't owe them anything. After a week of silence, they finally gave up. The wedding was still happening. And despite everything, the insults, the entitlement, the slap in the face, proposal, I still planned to go. Because Brandon was my brother. And I wasn't going to let his fiancée's audacity keep me from showing up. Not yet. The morning of the wedding, I took my time getting ready. I slipped into a navy blue wrap dress I'd picked out weeks ago, classy, understated, perfect for the occasion. I curled my hair, added a soft sweep of eyeliner, and dabbed on my favorite mauve lipstick. I wasn't trying to steal the show, but I wanted to show up with dignity. They never sent me a registry, which struck me as odd, but then again, nothing about this wedding had felt particularly normal. So, I did what felt practical, gave cash. I transferred $1,000 directly into Brandon's account with a short note, wedding gift from Natalie. Between that and the $10,000 I'd already coughed up for wedding costs, I figured I'd done more than enough. The Riverside Hotel was opulent, marble floors, gold-trimmed doors, staff in black tuxedos. The kind of place that makes you feel underdressed, no matter what you're wearing. The grand ballroom shimmered with white roses and crystal chandeliers, and there were easily 200 guests, maybe more. I found the seating chart near the entrance and scanned it for my name. Table 12. I counted. Tables 1 through 5 were up near the front, close to the head table. Table 12? Practically by the kitchen doors. Not that I needed to be front and center, but considering the money and the history, it stung a little. I made my way to my seat, doing my best to shrug it off, when I felt a tap on my shoulder. Natalie. I turned to see Ethan Brooks, Brandon's boss, my old colleague, and someone I'd always genuinely respected. Ethan, wow, it's been a while. He smiled warmly. How've you been? We chatted for a bit. I'd introduced Brandon to Ethan's company years ago, got him the interview that landed the job. Funny how that favor never made it into the family's gratitude column. Eventually, Ethan excused himself to find his table 3, just a few rows from the head table. I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. Apparently, professional connections outranked family. The ceremony began, and I have to admit it was beautiful. Alyssa looked like she stepped out of a bridal magazine, and Brandon, well, he looked genuinely happy. For a brief moment, I let my guard down. Maybe, just maybe, the rest of the evening would be peaceful. Then came the cocktail hour, then dinner, then the toasts. The best man cracked some college-era jokes, the maid of honor got emotional, and both sets of parents said their piece. Then Mom walked to the mic. And now, she said, smiling thinly, we'd love to hear from Brandon's sister, Natalie. I froze. This hadn't been planned. But I wasn't about to cause a scene. I stood, walked to the front, and took the mic. My voice stayed steady. Hi, I'm Natalie, Brandon's sister. I just want to say how happy I am to see him starting this new chapter. Brandon, you've always been my little brother, and seeing you this joyful means the world to me. Alyssa, welcome to the family. I truly wish you both a beautiful life together. Short. Respectful. I started to hand the mic back when I noticed Alyssa's expression. Her smile was gone. Replaced by something cold, sharp, angry. Before I could step away, she stood up, grabbing the mic right out of my hands. Actually, she said, her voice cutting through the ballroom like a knife, I don't even want Natalie here. The entire room fell into dead silence. And that's when everything unraveled. You could have heard a pin drop. Alyssa stood there, holding the microphone like she was at a press conference. Natalie is one of the most selfish, greedy people I've ever met, she announced, her voice echoing off the ballroom walls. Do you all want to know what she gave us for our wedding? A few guests shifted in their chairs, confused. $1,000, she scoffed, waving her manicured hand like she was swatting a fly. $1,000. Do you know what we asked her for? Her house. That oversized, empty house she doesn't even need because she's all alone. Gasps. Whispers. People craned their necks to look at me, and I felt my face go hot like I'd just walked into a furnace. I stepped forward, reaching out a hand. Alyssa, please. Let's talk about this privately. She yanked away. No. Everyone needs to hear this. Everyone needs to know what kind of selfish person you really are. I tried to take the mic back. She shoved me. Hard. Alyssa, stop, calm down. And then she slapped me. A loud, echoing crack that silenced the room all over again. My cheek burned instantly. I stood there, frozen. 200 pairs of eyes glued to me. I turned to my family. Mom's lips were pressed into a hard line, arms folded across her chest. Dad looked uncomfortable, but not enough to say anything. Brandon? He stared down at his plate like it held the answers to world peace. Even Alyssa's parents sat there, nodding, like what she did made sense. I waited. 1 second. Then 2. No one spoke. No one came to my defense. Then Mom walked over heels, clicking against the marble floor, and leaned in so close I could smell her perfume. Don't make a scene, she hissed. Just leave quietly, you've already ruined their special day. I didn't say a word. I walked back to table 12, picked up my purse, and left the ballroom without looking back. I could feel the judgment trailing behind me like perfume smoke. Pity. Disgust. Curiosity. Outside, the air was cool, thank God. I pulled out my phone and called a cab. That's when Ethan appeared behind me. Natalie, are you okay? His voice was soft, concerned. Forget the cab, I'll drive you. Come on, my car's right here. You don't have to. No way, I'm letting you stand out here alone after that. I've seen enough. He opened the passenger door and waited. I got in. On the way home, I cracked. I'd been holding it in all night, but in that quiet car with the city lights blurring past the windows, the dam finally broke. I gave them everything, Ethan. I helped Brandon get that job. I helped pay his rent. I gave my parents money every month. And this is how they repay me. He didn't interrupt. Just kept driving. I know, he said after a while. I've seen it. What happened in there wasn't just cruel, it was calculated. When we pulled into my driveway, he walked me to the door. I thanked him, then went inside and took the longest, hottest shower of my life, trying to scrub off the humiliation. Then, I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning, I slept in. When I finally turned my phone back on, it exploded: texts, missed calls, voicemails. Mom, Dad, Brandon. All screaming versions of the same thing. Fix this. Apparently, Brandon and Alyssa had been fired that very night. Terminated. Effective immediately. Ethan had seen enough, and he pulled the plug. And somehow, I was the villain. You made him fire them. Mom screamed when I picked up her call. I didn't tell him anything, I said, calmly. Call him, make him undo it. I laughed. I actually laughed. No, I said. If Ethan fired them, he had every reason, and I'm done. I blocked them all: Brandon, Alyssa, Mom, Dad. Then I blocked them on every app, every platform. Because I was done with being the family ATM. And finally, they'd given me the perfect excuse to walk away. Monday morning hit like a slap I didn't see coming this time, not from Alyssa, but from the loud, frantic banging on my front door. I was in the middle of getting ready for work, coffee half sipped, when I heard Mom shouting from outside. Natalie, open this door right now. Then Dad's voice. We know you're in there. I walked over to the window in my bedroom, pulled the curtain back just an inch, and there they were. The full entourage. Mom, Dad, Brandon. And Alyssa, who looked like she'd spent the entire night crying but still had enough energy left to scream louder than anyone. This is your fault, she shrieked toward my front door. You ruined our honeymoon, we were supposed to be in Hawaii this week. I cracked the window just enough to make sure they heard me. I didn't ask Ethan to fire you. He saw what happened at the wedding and made his own call. That only made Mom step forward, her voice tight with rage. You're being vindictive. Ungrateful. After everything we've done for you. I could feel my jaw clenching. After everything I've done for you? You mean demanding I hand over my house like it's a party favor? We're your family, Dad barked. We're supposed to help each other. I didn't skip a beat. Family doesn't slap each other in front of 200 people. That landed. Even Alyssa stopped yelling for a second. I held up my phone. Leave my property or I'm calling the police, I'm not bluffing. They glared at me in silence for a moment, then finally turned away. Alyssa hurled a few parting insults at my house as they left, but it didn't matter. I didn't flinch. They didn't show up again after that, at least not in person. But the gossip machine was in full swing. Cousins. Aunts. Mutual friends. Everyone seemed to have a version of the story. A few weeks later, my cousin Megan called. Just so you know, she said, Brandon and Alyssa found new jobs but they're not great. Smaller companies, lower salaries. And they had to move to a cheaper place. I guess you're not covering their rent anymore? Nope, I said. That ended the day I got slapped at a wedding. About a month after that, Mom tried a different tactic. She called me from a number I didn't recognize. Natalie, we need to talk, she said. We can't stay mad at each other forever, we're family. There's nothing to talk about, I replied. You all made it very clear where I stand. Then I hung up. Blocked that number too. Strangely, I felt lighter. The silence, the distance, it wasn't sad. It was peaceful. I had room to breathe again. Without the constant stream of emotional manipulation, financial demands, and backhanded compliments, I started living my life. I got promoted at work. I turned my guest bedroom into an art studio and started pottery classes on Saturdays. I was finally investing in me. And then there was Ethan. He'd called to check on me a few days after the wedding disaster, and we ended up talking for hours. Coffee dates turned into dinners, dinners turned into something real. I didn't fire them because of you, he told me one night while we sat on my couch, my favorite teal walls glowing in the soft lamplight. I fired them because what they did to you said everything about who they are. I can't have people like that, representing my company. He never once told me to forgive them. Never once suggested I was being too sensitive. He just listened. Supported me, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to earn someone's kindness. 3 months after the wedding, we officially became a couple. 6 months later, life feels completely different. I still live in my beautiful home with its bold colors and handmade furniture. No one critiques my decor. No one suggests I downsize because I'm single. And no one expects me to give up my hard-earned success to make them feel more comfortable. Brandon and Alyssa, from what I've heard, are surviving. New jobs, less money. No honeymoon. They're living a much different version of newlywed life than they expected, but I don't think about them much. Sometimes, I wonder if I'll ever speak to my parents again. Maybe. If they ever acknowledge how wrong they were, if they ever apologize, but I'm not holding my breath. The truth is, I'm okay. More than okay. I've learned something they never taught me. Family isn't about shared DNA, it's about mutual respect. Support. Love that doesn't come with a price tag or a guilt trip. Ethan shows me that kind of love. So do my real friends. And that's more than enough. I'm no longer someone's silent supporter in the background. I'm the woman who built a life for herself and refused to hand it over to people who never valued it in the first place. And for the first time in years, I'm exactly where I want to be. Life lesson inspired by Natalie's story. Natalie's journey reminds us that self-worth isn't something you owe to others, it's something you protect. For many in midlife, especially those who've worked hard to build careers, homes, and peace of mind, there's often pressure sometimes from family to sacrifice that progress for others. But Natalie shows that boundaries are not betrayals. Saying no to being manipulated doesn't make you selfish, it makes you strong. Her story also challenges the traditional idea that family always comes first, no matter the cost. Real family by blood or by choice respects you, supports you, and doesn't demand that you shrink yourself to make them feel bigger. Natalie learned, painfully but powerfully, that love without respect is not love, it's control. In a culture that often praises quiet endurance, Natalie did something bold. She chose peace over people pleasing. She chose growth over guilt. And in doing so, she created space for healthy love, meaningful relationships, and personal joy. Middle age is a turning point, not a time to be taken for granted, but to be fiercely protective of your values, your space, and your voice. Because sometimes, walking away is the most loving thing you can do for yourself.